Hi my friends, you're back in the handyman zone. We're gonna stain this handrail behind me. It's an oak handrail that I've slightly sanded with some 150 and set up outside because staining is really messy. Stain has like the viscosity of gasoline. In other words, it's thinner than water, so it like flicks off brushes and drips off rags, and it really can make a mess. So I would never want to stain inside, and I got gloves on and I'm going to watch I don't drip it on my feet. But you're going to want to follow the directions on the can, and one of those directions is to stir it because it does settle, the pigment settles to the bottom, so you're going to want to stir it thoroughly. And then I like to put my stain on with a brush. Some people like to use a rag and stuff, but that's even more messy. I think I use a disposable brush that I can just throw away when I'm done. And basically the procedure is we're going to apply this stain evenly to that piece of wood. We're going to let it soak in a few minutes, and then we're going to wipe it down with a lint-free cloth, which could be like an old t-shirt. An old cotton t-shirt would work great. I'm going to link to my video on making rags from old t-shirts if you're interested. And let's get going on this. Whether you're staining or putting polyurethane or painting wood, you always want to work with the grain. You never want to go across the grain. You always want to work with the grain. So of course we are liberally applying this stain with the grain, starting on the bottom, and we're going to rotate it and do the side. And just make sure you get it in all the little details in your wood, should you have any. You don't want to miss any spots. And again, this stuff is really messy. You don't want to get in the line of fire of this stuff because it's just like so thin. How's that? And the longer you let this stuff sit, supposedly, I mean, it does have like a certain color. There's all different color stains, but the longer you let it sit, the more it gets into the wood, the darker that particular color would be up until a certain point, because once it gets, it's been sitting so long, it doesn't want to wipe off. So you definitely don't want it sitting that long that you're going to have trouble wiping it off. So we're going to let it sit like 2 or 3 minutes. It took about that much stain to do that piece, just to give you an idea of how far a little can of stain will go pretty far. You don't got to buy the big cans unless you really got a big project. Once we wipe it down and let it dry according to manufacturer's instructions, we're going to hit it with 2 coats of polyurethane. The first coat, and we're going to let it dry a day, 24 hours. We're going to feel it. If it's a little bumpy or anything, we're going to give it a light sanding with like some 220 grit paper or something like that. Wipe it down, just a light sanding, just to get the bumps off, not to get any of the polyurethane off. And then we're going to give it a second coat and let it dry. And then it should be good to go. 2 coats. Okay, we've let it sit. Now we're going to wipe it off. And with this wiping, the more you wipe, you know, to a certain degree, the lighter it gets. So you want to make sure that you wipe it evenly and not like a whole bunch on one end and not so much at the other, because it's not going to have an even pigment to the stain. So wiping it evenly and making sure we get in all the little crevices and details just to get the excess stain off so it dries nicely. It's a nice looking golden oak. This is golden oak color. You get all this extra stain off. And then we're going to sit it and let it dry overnight and hit it with our first coat of polyurethane tomorrow. And the next day, another coat of polyurethane with possibly a light sanding in between. That's it.